In today's video, I am going to show you how I won the Champions League with Turkish side Fenerbahce. After finishing as league runners-up for a third season in a row, Turkish giants Fenerbahce fired their manager and appointed Jose Mourinho to take over. However, in today's video, they won't be getting the special one. They'll be getting me.
I think I'm a special one.
Using an updated database, I'll be taking over at the end of the 23-24 season and seeing if I can return this club to glory. As Jose had the summer to wheel and deal and get signings in, I've allowed myself the summer to see what I can do in the transfer market. So potentially no En-Nesyri or Alan Saint-Maximin in this video. Over the summer, I actually got started and started stamping my authority on this squad, and several players were shown the door. The most expensive of the outgoings was Bright Osati Samuel, who left the club for Saudi side Al Shabab for £4.7 million. He was followed out the door by Jadon Oosterwolde, who joined Real Betis in Spain for £4.5 million. Then defender Luan Perez joined Brazilian side Grêmio for £3.7 million. But those transfers did allow me to get a little bit aggressive in the transfer window. However, it wouldn't be a summer transfer window if I didn't look at the free transfer market. First was the pre-arranged signing of Rade Krunic from AC Milan, and I followed that up with two lads from the Premier League as we signed Anthony Martial and Eric Dyer. However, I did still want to keep the strong Turkish flavour to the side, so I mirrored one of the team's IRL signings as I bought in Caglar Soyuncu from Atletico Madrid for £5.25 million. Then the biggest signing of the summer was here as we splashed the cash to bring in Salih Özcan from Dortmund for an initial £19 million. And I understand that seems like a lot, but I'm expecting this guy to be in the team for the remainder of this save. I'm also trying to get one more signing over the line as I'm looking to bring in Ridvan Yilmaz from Rangers for an initial £2 million to bolster our options at left back. Tactic wise, I'll be testing out the FIFA E World Cup winning team's tactic that I've already reviewed on my channel, and this is how the team looks going into the first game of the season. In this lineup, you will notice a few players on the slightly mature side, as we have players like Edin Dzeko and Dusan Tadic in the team, but I still think for this season at least, they can do a job. We have already played in the Turkish Super Cup where we took on Galatasaray, and we figured out the enormity of this task here as we were pretty much played off the park in a 2-0 loss. But we will hopefully have Champions League revenue coming in as long as we can make it through the qualifying portion of the competition. The board are expecting a league title this season, and we are favourites for that title, so it's time to get Fenerbahce over the line to win their first title since 2014. Domestically, we had a great start to our season as we won our first 5 games of the Super League season in a row. In the first half of the year, we did suffer a couple of defeats, including an uninspiring 3-0 loss away to Galatasaray. So as that Champions League money landed in our bank account, we'll talk a little bit more about that later, the board backed me to the hilt in January, so I went shopping. The first man through the door was Ozan Kabak from Hoffenheim for £16 million to step into being our new starting centre-back at the club. Next, we raided the MLS as we signed Thiago Almada from Atlanta United for his minimum fee release clause of £12.25 million, and followed that up by bringing in Teles Magno from New York City for £14.75 million. That window also saw 16 players leave the club, with Eric Dyer being sold to West Ham for £3.8 million, which was our largest outgoing. He wasn't here very long, but at least we turned a profit on him. Those extra signings took us to the next level as we went unbeaten in 2025, including a run of 9 consecutive wins to close out the season. And it's just as well we did that, as we only managed to snag the league title by just 3 points. Which is crazy when you consider we only lost twice all season in the league, but it is the team's first title for 11 years. We carried that form into the Turkish Cup as we progressed through the early rounds with ease to face Besiktas in the quarterfinals. I thought this would provide a sterner test than it did, but we ultimately ran out 4-0 winners with a rotated 11, all whilst restricting Besiktas to not even having a shot in the game. We moved into the semi-finals where we had to take on Rezspor over 2 legs. We were on the road in the first, and an early red card for the home side allowed us to really assert ourselves on the game, bagging 5 goals without reply to basically book our place in the final. The second leg was at home and just a bit of a formality, as we did score another 3 goals for added measure to win the tie 8-0 and coast into the final. We lucked out in the final as we had to face lower league Malatyaspor and ripped them apart, scoring 5 goals yet again, this time with 5 different goal scorers to lift the trophy and bag a domestic double. And finally, for Season 1, we have to talk about the Champions League because we had a great showing in the competition this season. The first leg in qualification against Sporting was a dull 0-0 in Portugal, but back home we dominated the game with Edin Dzeko scoring a brace in a 3-1 win to send us into the league phase. Here we managed to pick up several wins against the likes of Lille, Celtic and Juventus, along with an impressive draw against Real Madrid. Those results saw us finish the league phase on 12 points and secure our pathway into the knockout phase of the competition. We were unfortunate enough to be drawn alongside Spurs for this one, and the first leg would take place in Istanbul. This was a pretty end-to-end game, but it was Spurs who struck first through Heung-min Son in the 83rd minute as he lashed the ball home from just inside the area. But less than 2 minutes later, Thiago Almada got on the end of a low cross into the box and steered it into the back of the net. But I knew this second leg in London was going to be a little bit of a task, but we actually did weather the storm from Spurs and even take the game into extra time. And this is where, to my surprise, we took the lead as Anthony Martial robbed the ball on the edge of the area and smashed it past Vicario. But as I thought we were about to move into the round of 16, Spurs struck back through Giovanni Lo Celso in the 118th minute, meaning the game would be settled via penalty shootout. Both goal scorers then instantly converted from the spot, and then disaster struck for us as Vicario saved the penalty from Dusan Tadic to give advantage to Spurs. They then continued to score all of their remaining penalties in the shootout to see us sadly exit the competition. But this season finally saw us win that first league title for 11 years, all while strengthening our squad massively. And over the summer we've been given an eye-watering transfer budget of £73 million, so let's get to spending. Now, before we get into this transfer window, I have to tell you that this summer was wild in-game. We saw 14 players depart the club, earning us a total of £49.5 million in transfer fees. The most expensive of these were Sebastian Szymanski, who departed for Porto for £27.5 million, Ryan Kent, who left for Saudi Arabia for £10 million, and Alexander Djuki, who left for Saint Etienne. But those transfers did fuel a huge summer of transfer spend as we dropped over £200 million in total on 7 players, including some Turkish superstars. The most expensive of these saw us pick up Semih Kılıçsoy from Besiktas for a whopping £55 million, and I'm hoping he is going to be the main man for us up top and will lead the line for us for the rest of the save. We then spent £53 million to bring in Kenan Yildiz from Juventus over to Turkey, but granted, a decent amount of that is in installments. Next, we brought Arda Güler back to the club from Real Madrid for £40 million. But we did have a 20% sell-on clause, so I managed to get £8 million of that back. I then improved us defensively as we signed Georgi Mamadishvili from Valencia for £37 million to be our new goalkeeper, along with Crystal Palace defender Joachim Andersen for £21 million and Leif Davis from Ipswich for £12.5 million. And finally, we secured the services of Oke Yoshkalu from West Brom on a free transfer as he returned home to Turkey. We now have several options in this team, but I'm going to be pinning Yildiz and Güler into these positions to make sure they get as much game time as possible. We have the same 4 competitions on our schedule this season, and I want to compete for a domestic treble and attempt to improve on last season's knockout stage performance in the Champions League. We opened Season 2 with the Turkish Super Cup, where several of our new signings made their debut. However, this performance was far from convincing as we let a 2-goal lead slip in the game to see it finish 2-2. Extra time couldn't separate the two sides, so we went to penalties. Our outfield players continued to slot one after another, whilst our goalkeeper Dominik Livakovic performed some heroics to save 2 penalties back-to-back to see us lift the first trophy of the season. However, after a little settling in period, the team started to pick up some impressive results in the Super League in the opening portion of the season to see us surge up to the top of the table. In January, we had to balance the books a little bit, so we saw 5 players leave the football club. The most expensive of which saw Dominik Livakovic join West Ham for £12.5 million, and he was followed to the Premier League by Rade Krunic, who joined Wolves for £1.2 million. The window also saw defender Rodrigo Becao join Valencia for £12 million and Ismail Yüksek join Real Betis for £4.8 million. Those transfers saw an additional $30 million come into the club, which will help keep the accountants happy. As we moved into 2026, the team began to grow and mature into the team that I know they are capable of being, picking up some huge results along the way to see us claim our second league title in a row, this time with 93 points. Our main man this season was Kenan Yildiz, who topped the charts in terms of assists this campaign with 19 assists in all competitions, but also chipped in with 14 goals of his own. He is now wanted by Aston Villa and Tottenham, but I can assure you, he will not be leaving. We carried our dominant league form into the Turkish Cup, where we blasted our way through to a second final in a row, where we faced Adana Demirspor. They finished the season 6th in the Super League, but this was a little bit of a no contest as we scored 4 unanswered goals to lift the Turkish Cup for a second season in a row and complete a domestic treble. However, I feel like this team will be only judged on their Champions League performance, especially with some of the players that we do have in this squad now. As Turkish champions, we went straight into the Champions League phase, where we were a bit mid in terms of our results, but managed to pick up 11 points and progress to the knockout stages of the competition. It was Napoli in our way here, and we had to face them at home in the first leg. And we started well with Semi bagging a goal in the first half before Thiago Almada took over in the second half, bagging a brace in what turned out to be a 4-1 win. The game in Naples was a little bit more tame as Victor Osimhen opened the scoring in the first half, but his strike was cancelled out in the second half by an Arda Güler penalty. That result saw us progress into the round of 16, where we were drawn alongside Juventus, with us again hosting that first leg in Istanbul. We were in charge for a majority of this game and bagged goals at either end of it to secure a 2-0 win to take to Turin. But then in the away leg, we went off. We scored in the second minute and then went on a roll from there, scoring 7 goals in a 7-1 win on the night to complete a 9-1 aggregate win and see us progress into the quarter-finals for the first time in the save. There was English opposition in our path here as we had to face Chelsea, who are now managed by Unai Emery.
Good evening.
For a third time in a row, we were at home first, and for a third time in a row, we won the game thanks to 2 goals inside the first half. The return fixture at Stamford Bridge did then have a little bit more drama, as Chelsea scored twice to make it all square on aggregate. But after a rousing team talk from yours truly, at halftime, we bagged 2 quick-fire goals in the second half to regain the lead. However, we let that slip yet again as goals from Cole Palmer and Goncalo Inacio sent the game into extra time after a 4-4 draw on aggregate. The additional 30 minutes couldn't separate the sides, so we had to go to penalties yet again. Chelsea were incredibly clinical here, scoring all 5 of their penalties, but sadly for us, Telles Magno saw his spot kick come crashing back off the crossbar to see us exit the competition. This season we dominated domestically and progressed on the European stage, so I am pretty happy with this progress. And also Fenerbahce, I was unfamiliar with your game as I was given another £48 million in transfer budget for the summer, so let's get to spending. Compared to last season, this summer was a little bit more tame, but we did lose one of our superstars. Telles Magno left the club to join Bayern Munich for an initial £41 million, which will see us make a £28 million profit on him, and that could rise even higher. We also saw backup right-back Mert Mulder depart the club to join Lazio for £14.25 million. That allowed me to make some specific additions to the team, starting off with French defender Maxence Lacroix from Wolfsburg for £38.5 million, and I think he will be a superb addition to the squad. We then signed another Frenchman as we picked up defensive midfielder Lucas Ogona-Durath from Red Bull Salzburg for £22 million, and finally I was shocked to see Jeremy Doku transfer listed by Manchester City, so I signed him for what I thought was a cut price of £25.5 million. Our team is looking deeper than ever and we will have some supreme talents in the squad, but again I will be pinning Yildiz and Güler into these positions for the whole season. Competitions wise, I want us to continue to dominate Turkey and attempt to improve on last season's Champions League quarter-final appearance. This season, to start off, we had the Turkish Super Cup, which was a repeat of last year's cup final. and we saw the exact same result. Yet again, we scored 4 goals against Adana Demirspor to lift the Super Cup with relative ease. We carried that impressive performance into the Super League, winning every single game for the remainder of 2026, apart from a surprising 4-0 loss to Trabzonspor in October. This was a huge coming-of-age season for Thiago Almada, who dominated in the final third of the pitch, as he scored 34 goals along with 20 assists, totaling 54 goal contributions in 55 games, which is outstanding for an attacking midfielder. And he is now wanted by Napoli and Al Ahly, so we could face a task of holding on to him. Arda Güler was a close second here, providing 47 goal contributions himself, and he is now wanted by Manchester City. Our second half of the league season looked very similar to the start of the campaign, as we only lost twice in the second half, to winning the rest of the games to top the league with 103 points, to lift a 3rd league title in a row. As you'd expect with this domestic form, progression in the cup was a given, and we made it to a 3rd cup final in a row. This year it was against 11th place Salmanspor, but this was the Thiago Almada show, as he scored an outstanding hat-trick to see us lift the trophy and continue our domination of the country. But I think this squad is actually capable of winning a Champions League, and we really showed that in the league phase. We actually won 6 of our 8 fixtures, with the only loss coming away at the Bernabeu against Real Madrid. That points tally saw us finish the league phase in 7th and automatically qualify for the round of 16. Here we had to face Portuguese side Benfica and had to travel to Lisbon for the first leg. But I felt like we were a little bit complacent here, and Benfica took advantage, scoring 2 goals early on. We did pull a goal back in the second half, but would still have a lot to do in the home leg. Games in Istanbul are a bit of a fiery atmosphere, and we were able to blow them out the water, scoring 5 unanswered goals to progress with a 6-2 aggregate scoreline. It was German opposition in the quarterfinals, as we had to face RB Leipzig, and again we had to travel for the first leg. And much like the last round, we failed to impress on the road, losing the game 1-0, with Savio scoring the only goal of the game. But it is our home form where we are a truly different animal, as goals from Thiago Almada, Fred and Soyuncu saw us progress to an unprecedented semi-final. And it was here where we had to face Chelsea, the side that knocked us out of the competition last year. For a 3rd tie in a row, we had to travel for the first leg, but this time we took the lead inside the first 60 seconds, as Semi fired us in from close range. Chelsea did then pull level through Nicholas Jackson, but in the 96th minute, Almada found himself with space in the box and curled an effort past former Arsenal keeper Aaron Ramsdale. The second leg was a pure end-to-end game of football, as we took the lead 3 times on the night, but Chelsea were only able to cancel it out twice, meaning we won the game 3-2 and the tie 5-3 on aggregate. Which means we made it all the way to the Champions League final, where we would have to face PSG. We took to the field knowing we were massive underdogs for this one, but I really did feel like we could cause an upset. But inside the first 25 minutes, we found ourselves a goal down, as Manuel Ugarte fired home after a Kylian Mbappe low cross. However, 5 minutes later, we were level, as Maxence Lacroix headed home from a corner. But it was in the second half where we really ran out of steam, and PSG took over the game, scoring 3 goals without reply to lift the Champions League trophy, with our boys just sat there watching on. But when you look at some of our player ratings after the game, you can see that several players really didn't turn up, which is super disappointing. But we got so close this season, I need to give it one more go, and this summer I have yet another £41 million to spend on this squad to get us over the line. This summer saw us make a quick flip on Jeremy Doku, as he left the club for Newcastle after just 1 season. We sold him for £38 million, so made a £12.5 million profit after just 1 year, so I will definitely take it. We also moved Joachim Andersen over to Villarreal for £20.5 million, and Oke Yoshkalu left the club for FC Dallas for another £1 million. We also let Kaglar Soyuncu, Kenneth Yunder, Anthony Martial and Fred all leave the club on free transfers. But it wouldn't be a summer transfer window at Fenerbahce if I didn't spend some money. We replaced Jeremy Doku with Jadon Sancho, who was at Arsenal in this world, and he cost us £30 million. Next we signed Marco Cana from Anderlecht for £23 million and Paul Grassi from Girona for £20 million. I also wanted some more squad depth, so we signed Malo Gusto from Chelsea for £7.75 million and Scott McTominay from Manchester United for £5.5 million. And then on free transfers we added Renan Lodi after his spell in Saudi Arabia had come to an end, and Turkey legend Hakan Hakan Çalhanoğlu on free transfers to give us a little bit more experience. I want to bounce back from last season's Champions League final defeat, and I would love to make it all the way to the final for a second season in a row. As always, the season started with the Super Cup in a repeat of last season's cup final, and yet again we flew through the opposition, scoring 6 unanswered goals to lift the trophy for a third season in a row and get our campaign off to a flyer. It's clear when you look at our Super League fixtures that we've created that separation compared to the rest of the league. We romped to a 4th league title in a row, only losing twice all season, and this year only conceding 22 goals in our 38 games. Our key men were at both ends of the pitch, as Semi won the league's golden boot, scoring 31 goals in 37 appearances, while Georgi Mamadishvili kept an impressive 23 clean sheets. We also made it to the final of the Turkish Cup, this time only conceding a single goal in 5 games. This year we had to take on Besiktas in the final, but yet again, this wasn't exactly close. Arda Güler opened the scoring in the 9th minute, and then we just didn't look back. Following that, we scored another 3 goals without reply to bag yet another trophy. But this season, it was all about the Champions League. We looked very impressive in the league phase, winning 7 of our 8 games, only dropping 2 points with a draw away to Porto. Those results saw us top the Champions League table and move into the round of 16. Here we had to take on Red Bull Salzburg, and we were on the road for the first leg. We were in charge here as Kenan Yildiz opened the scoring, but Salzburg were able to pull level late on with their only shot on target in the game. But I knew that we had enough about us to win the second leg at home, and we did just that, scoring 5 goals in the process, with 2 of them coming to Jadon Sancho. In the quarterfinals, we were handed an opportunity to atone for last season as we had to take on PSG. The first leg was in Paris, and set pieces saved us on this one as Maxence Lacroix twice pulled us level at the Parc des Princes after Arda Güler missed a first half penalty. But in the second leg, the home crowd roared us along as the lads scored 3 unanswered goals to win the tie 5-2 and get our own back on PSG for last year's final defeat. That win saw us rewarded by having to face Real Madrid in the semis, and this time we had the first leg at home. And the boys really showed how good a team we can be as we raced out to a 3-0 lead going into half time. We added a 4th goal in the second half just for good measure to take a solid lead into the second leg. But this is the Champions League with a fixture against Real Madrid away at the Bernabeu, so we all know anything can happen here. And that second leg was a crazy fixture with goals flying in for both sides. Madrid were powered along by Vinicius Jr., who scored a hat-trick on the night in a 5-4 win, but the damage was done in the first leg, meaning we made back-to-back Champions League finals. This season, we had to take on Barcelona in the final, and as both teams took to the field, I knew this would be a cagey one. But this time, we scored the only goal of the game as Maxence Lacroix got his head on the end of an Arda Güler corner to see us lift the Champions League trophy in our 4th season at the club. And if you want to carry on this journey for yourself, you can get the save files just as I've left it just after the Champions League final over on my Patreon. And if you want to see me try and do the exact same thing that I did with Fenerbahce, but with Dynamo Kyiv in Ukraine, check out the video popping up on your screen now. Go on, it's good fun, I promise.